The mainstream media wants you to believe that everyone suspicious about wildfires in Canada is some sort of nut job conspiracy theorist. But is there any merit to some of the skeptics' concerns? In today's report, I sit down to interview a couple from Celista, BC, who share shocking details about the origin of a fire near their property that, at the very least, will make you question what is going on here.
I was mad. I still am, actually. I'm still quite mad about it because that's exactly a fact. This fire that burnt our town was human caused. I'm not aware of people in any business or government agency that are allowed to burn down cities or allowed to burn people's homes down. Why this person hasn't been arrested and charged with something is beyond me. This is arson.
Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and take a look at these state choice media articles. The CBC, Global News, CTV, and many more all release the same messaging, with nearly identical headlines and all within 24 hours of each other. Their message? Only a conspiratorial kook can smell something foul in the air with BC's ongoing wildfires. And sure, just like our boots-on-the-ground coverage of the Maui fires, which you can find at thetruthaboutmaui.com, showed you, it is wise not to get caught up in every single catchy TikTok video or Facebook reel that professes a nefarious plot about a tragedy. But we also showed you that sometimes there are concerning truths that can only be discovered in the stories that are too often untold. Which brings me to today's report. While Legacy Media and Cliff Chapman, BC Wildfire Services Director of Wildfire Operations, are reporting this about an intentionally lit fire in the Shuswap community.
We did our planned ignition under the conditions in which we planned for, and it was largely successful. I want to be perfectly clear, that planned ignition saved hundreds of homes and properties along the North Shuswap. That fire went above the control line that we burned off from and then swept back into the communities in the North Shuswap. We were still successful in protecting some of those properties along the North Shuswap in the hundreds. Unfortunately, we've also now seen the devastation the main body of that fire had in areas like Scotch Creek, Celista, and others.
Some locals impacted by the purposeful blaze are singing a very different tune. Quite frankly, they're pissed. And they say there is no logical reason for fire authorities to have lighted up such a blaze when they knew high winds were on the horizon.
We knew the winds were coming. As those winds were approaching, going through the Caribou Fire Center, there was a continuous line of fuel between the main body of the fire and all of the communities along the North Shuswap. Unfortunately, with the wind that we knew was forecast and that was coming, that fire went above the control line that we burned off from and then swept back into the communities in the North Shuswap.
Now, I did reach out to BC Wildfire Services to get more of their side of the story. They just referred me to the updates, some of which we showed you in this report already. I also reached out to the media contact for the Minister of Forestry as well as the Minister himself to find out, do they agree with this take that we're hearing from BC Wildfire that this intentionally lit blaze was in fact successful? Why or why not? I have not heard back at this time. If we do in a timely fashion, we'll go ahead and update you about that in the written article, which you can find a link at in the description box below.
I've been aware of the Adams Lake fire, obviously near 15 kilometers close to our home for weeks already. It's been there for, I don't know, maybe a month. I'm not exactly sure, but it's been there a long time. I usually keep an eye on the local fires just to make sure that, you know, if conditions change, that you want to be ready for these sort of things. So I was sitting at work. I don't work anywhere close to home at all. And I was watching the weather report and noticed that, you know, within the next 24 to 36 hours, there was going to be some very high winds blowing from the direction of the fire towards our home. So I told my boss I wasn't going to come into work, and got up. I was on night shift. I got up the next day and drove home to prepare by putting up sprinklers on the roof of the house, filling up. We have a cistern for our water, so I wanted to make sure that that was topped up in case we had to run the sprinklers for a lengthy period of time. And
getting our family and dogs
Right.
out.
Yeah, we got our son and my mother out of there, and our dogs. We got them out of there right away. And then me and Steph stayed there to prep the property. We had a backhoe on our property. We used to widen the gap between our home and the nearest trees. We took down quite a few trees around the house, and just basically fire safed everything. Made sure there wasn't, stacks of firewood leaning against the side of the house and things like that.
And at this time, were you given an evacuation notice or anything like that? No. Okay, well, which brings me to my next question, which is alarming then, especially if you weren't even told to be evacuated. There ended up being, according to you both, a backburn that was lit when these winds were really high, I think 30. Well, you can tell us, how high were the winds, and what's up with this backburn?
The backburn was lit. Like I said, the Adams Lake fire was roughly 12 to 15 kilometers away. The backburn was lit substantially closer to our property than that.
I read an article that said it was a 14-kilometer backburn.
And they've since stopped denying that there was a backburn there. This has since been reported. It's a fact. They lit the backburn just a couple of kilometers, maybe 1.5 kilometers away from the house.
They posted a notice at the gas station at 3 p.m. and lit the backburn shortly after that.
Important note on that is that the gas station is nowhere near our home. It's probably 10 kilometers away. While people are running around hooking up garden hoses and trying to prep, we also prepped several of our neighbors' homes as well. We had a bunch of sprinklers, so we put sprinklers on everybody's houses in the area to try to save as many as we could. And then,
I was just going to say, clearly you guys had your hands tied. You were busy, you weren't going to work. You were dealing with all this. So, that wouldn't be proper notice.
I went and helped out a neighbor across the street. I was on the roof of his house with a sprinkler in my hand, getting ready to screw it onto the peak of his house. And I noticed this huge plume of smoke just over the hill at the end of his property. There's a huge mound. And you can see the Adams Lake Plateau 12 kilometers away where the fire is supposed to be over there. And now it's suddenly just on the other side of our hill here. And I was like, okay, are you guys seeing this right now? And we still at this point had no idea. We were thinking we had an entire day before of even in strong winds, we would have hopefully a day to prepare for the Adams Lake fire. And then all of a sudden there was a fire on the other side of this hill.
And the fire department I watched kept driving up and down our road. Multiple times. And the fire chief drove up and down the road and never stopped at any houses to say anything to anyone, not to any of us anyway.
No, there's definitely firemen present in the area. We saw several vehicles. There was lots of vehicle traffic. We're at the far end of a dead end road that winds into the mountains. There's usually no traffic at all up there. There's a few people that live up there. That's it. There's no reason to have traffic. But there was a whole bunch of firemen and fire equipment and stuff like that there. And then once the fire, the smoke, we saw the big plume go up in the air. Then I saw the plume gradually go straight over top of all of our properties, which is bad. And then shortly after that, we could start seeing orange glow in the smoke that was coming in our direction. And then the next 48 hours was just a complete battleground trying to keep the fire from burning all of our homes.
And I should state that in this notice, I don't know if you can see it. I will send it to you. This notice, it says right in it. So they posted it at 3 p.m. And in the notice, it says that there are erratic winds and potential convective cells are anticipated to materialize at approximately 5 p.m. And they're to do a 180 degrees and turn around back into communities. So they posted this at 3 p.m. They lit the fire shortly after, and the winds were to shift and come back to us at 5 p.m. and nobody notified us.
This is so alarming. You did share with me that thankfully your property is okay. Are you aware if anybody, because I know you guys are still in Kamloops, are you aware if any of your neighbors were affected by this fire? Or
Well, in our immediate area that we defended, tooth and nail, we dug our heels in and just decided we weren't going to lose our properties. And in that, we're in a heavily forested group. There's the houses are on 3 to 5 acre lots, so they're quite large. There's a lot of heavy forest there, and if the fire had gotten inside our sort of containment wall that we had built with sprinklers and things like that, we would have all lost everything. So we fought tooth and nail, and we collectively probably saved 15 structures over the next 48 hours. The fire passed by us. It did sweep past us in this high wind. It was up to 30. I don't even know the winds, but the trees were bending over. The fire was moving incredibly fast. It blew past us and burnt down half of our town.
wow.
Like more than half of it. Like lots, like 100 homes burnt down after it passed us.
Well, thank you so much for your efforts and the people that got together. But there are people, and maybe you're included in this bunch, who felt like they were almost penalized for staying behind and defending property. Did you experience that at all? Do you know people who did? And what do you make of that?
I don't know about penalized. There was no tickets handed out or anything like that. So, but we were definitely hampered in our efforts. I had friends of mine calling, being like, "Do you want me to come out and help?" And they had the roads blocked. Like once they tell you to evacuate, which was they did tell us to evacuate, but it was when the flames were coming over the hill, and then they just said, "Okay, well this fire's out of control. You guys all have to leave." And we were like, "No." And then they turned around and ran, left us standing there by ourselves. Then the fire went past us and burnt everything else. So I can see why they would have had to have chased the fire back to town. They can't hang out there forever, but
there are stories from locals. Like there's a woman out there that owns a food truck called BT.
Right.
She's local, and like all she wanted to do was help. Like she's got food, she's got all sorts of stuff, and wants to go out and feed communities. And they had cops patrolling her driveway, making sure that she never left.
Right.
There were locals on the side of the roads with like equipment and like water containers in the backs of their trucks, putting out hotspots, and the cops were telling them to go home.
Yeah. The roadblocks definitely didn't help anybody. They basically wanted to come in, take control of the situation that they'd created, and then they wanted everybody that was local to leave so that they could handle the situation. They weren't doing anything to stop the fire or help in any way. All they were doing was trying to chase everybody out of the area, and they were watching homes burn down. Like they didn't effectively do anything against this fire.
Now it's tough because I do know there is, they are supposed to keep the people safe too. So there's that element of it, but I can't imagine being in your shoes, seeing that happen, and other people watching and feeling so helpless as that's happening.
There were people out there that were in the middle of saving their houses, and they were coming to tell them not to do it. And they were like, the only way to save this house is to remove the trees that are around it. Now, like, can you get out of my way so I don't hurt anyone? And they were like coming and standing in the way of it. The people that live out there are not stupid people. Like they're more than equipped to be able to go out and save a house from a fire. Like everyone thinks that it's just professionals that can do this, but it's
clearly not.
It's not.
Look at how well we did. If you look on the map and you find our place, it's the biggest spot left there that didn't burn. And that was four people with piss tanks on our backs and garden hoses. We didn't have fire trucks. We didn't have any advanced equipment. We just had a big heart and the desire to do it.
Yeah, certainly not stupid people. And thank you so much for the efforts that you guys did. I will say there is something to be said about trying to keep people safe from coming there, but it does seem like something is really amiss here. And this isn't the first time we're seeing it happen in British Columbia. You see a lot of people, a lot of leaders pointing to climate change. Of course, there's a lot of human cause, things like that. But here in your story, you're saying a lot of the grief you experienced was from a backburn that probably was negligent. we can't say for sure. I don't know the other side of the story. But what does that feel like? How do you juggle all of that, that you're doing everything you could have, and then it almost seemed like the people that are supposed to help were the problem, and also not offering the help you should have had?
I think you pretty much nailed it there. Imagine how you would feel in that position.
We're pissed off.
That's how I felt. Yeah. I was mad. I still am, actually. I'm still quite mad about it, because that's exactly a fact. This fire that burnt our town was human caused. I'm not aware of people in any business or government agency that are allowed to burn down cities or allowed to burn people's homes down. Why this person hasn't been arrested and charged with something is beyond me. This is arson. That's what it is. I looked up. You look it up in the criminal code. This is arson, and that's it. That's a fact.
And them defending that it was largely successful. I don't understand how a backburn that can go on to burn communities down is largely successful. That's gaslighting.
And the metric they used was that there was still some structures left, and those were saved by the locals. So hadn't we saved our own properties, well, it certainly wouldn't have been a success then.
Wow.
And then they have the nerve to talk shit about us.
And I would, if that was a success, I would like to know what's a failure if that was a success.
Wow. Well, again, thank you guys for your hard work, and I'm glad to be able to help you get your story. Last question. What would you like to see changed for next time in this situation?
To be perfectly honest, the community would have done better without them. I think this whole backburn thing, we have gotten information from old retired veteran forest fighting investigators that have just said that it's literally impossible to be that stupid, was his exact words. It infuriates me. I don't know how to fix this problem, but I can tell you the problem's not going to go away. Just from the people that we've spoken to and the amount of word that we've got now, I don't think they're going to have any chance of getting people away from these fires anymore. They've lost control of their ability to effectively do this. Thank you both of you, for sharing your story. And I won't stop looking into why this backburn was lit and what the backpedaling about it is about.
If you'd like to chip in to help support some of those who have been impacted by BC's wildfires, you can click on the link to our written report in the description below and find the direct Red Cross link to do so there. If you appreciate that you saw this report on Rebel News, you can chip in a few bucks to cover our independent journalism by going to rebelnews.com and clicking on donate while you're there. We appreciate your support.